been involved in at least 17 homicides, some of which may have occurred outside the city of Milwaukee.
Authorities here are wondering how anyone could have committed these gruesome acts, just as others here in Milwaukee are wondering how police couldn't have known. Neither police, his parole officer, nor his neighbors were persistent enough to uncover Dahmer's secrets.
His ex-roommate says he remembers Dahmer as a hard-drinking wimp.
One longtime acquaintance describes Dahmer as one weird dude. A neighbor offered a similar description.
In my opinion, he appeared to me to be a geek. And by that I mean a guy that stays to himself and just do weird things, unlike anyone else, like suspicious, but not to the degree that you would think that he was around murdering people. You would think that he's just not affiliated with being around things with the happenings, you know, a square type of guy, you know.
In Milwaukee, suspected mass killer Jeffrey Dahmer was formally charged late today with 4 counts of first-degree homicide. Prosecutors said they expect to bring more charges against the man, whose apartment, it turns out, was loaded with body parts.
Marty Schmidt was a high school friend of Dahmer's.
It just seemed to me that he was so lost that I felt real strongly, always like something very tragic was going to happen.
Jeffrey Dahmer, who police say has now confessed to 17 murders, appeared calm as he walked into the courtroom.
To imagine that any human being, any civilized human being in civilized society could do something as gruesome. Other than that, it's inexplicable.
An additional victim from the Chicago area was positively identified overnight. Officials say 4 more of the dead were also from Illinois and were identified through fingerprints. Outside Dahmer's apartment, there was no sign the building was a scene of ghoulish slaughter. Residents say in this neighborhood, where violence is common, people keep to themselves.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
What does this street look like to you? Does it look like an average street with average homes, average occupants, average people living average lives? Well, essentially, it is. But this street is marred with darkness, and a darkness that this street will never be able to truly escape from. Because not only is this a residential street, this is a residential street with one infamous home on it. The home of Jeffrey Dahmer's grandmother. The home where Jeffrey Dahmer murdered and dismembered a number of his victims during his crime spree. Yes, in this home right behind us, obviously we can't go in, we can't investigate, but this is the home where Jeffrey Dahmer once lived with his grandmother. He dismembered bodies in the basement. There were smells emanating from the house. Some of the remains were disposed of in garbage bags, sat right here on this street. And this is the beginning of our Jeffrey Dahmer episode. Today on the Paranormal Files, we're diving deep into the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal, one of the most infamous killers in all of American history. It's cold, it's a chilly October day right now, it's beautiful. Tonight, we have a very special location. In this documentary, we're going to be investigating numerous sites in the Milwaukee area for paranormal activity. Shaker's Cigar Bar, where Jeffrey Dahmer once frequented. The Ambassador Hotel, which is where we're staying tonight. We actually have the room where Jeffrey murdered his first victim here in Milwaukee. And eventually, we're going to find ourselves at the property where the Oxford Apartments once stood, where Jeffrey ultimately carried out the most gruesome of his crimes in his own private apartment. But it really is like something out of a movie. The house kind of just looks evil, you know? You can tell there's something there. How are you feeling?
I feel good. I mean, it's like the Dahmer story's one of the most interesting true crime stories of all time, and I did so much research on the Dahmer case for our podcast Murder in America, and he would bring victims here, kill them, while his grandma was sitting upstairs, sleeping, doing whatever, he would dismember them and have their bodies here for weeks, and she had no idea. In a certain part of my research, I noticed that Jeffrey would take out the trash, and his grandma said that trash bags would be leaking this dark fluid that smelled, and the trash bags would have been sitting right here. And she eventually kicked Jeffrey out because the house started smelling really bad from him killing victims in there. Obviously, the body parts and everything would start to smell. She didn't know that he was doing that here, but she eventually found out, obviously, and kicked him out.
And he actually scattered some remains here at the house, too.
Our victim, actually, that was killed at the Ambassador Hotel, was brought here in a suitcase. He killed Steven in the hotel, brought him here in a suitcase, and he stored his body. He kept his body in the suitcase for almost a week. The grandma had no idea. After a few days, your body obviously starts to smell after you've been dead, and this is where Steven was kept for a week after his death. Also, Steven is the only one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims that have never been identified. His body parts have never been found because while he was in here, Jeffrey tried to boil his skull so he could defile it. The skull didn't end up working the way he wanted it to, so he ended up just pulverizing it and scattering it around here. So Steven's remains have never been found, which is another just eerie part of the whole story.
Wow. Well, everybody, I'm Colin Browen.
And I'm Courtney
Shannon. Usually we'd say, and you're listening to Murder in America.
Yes.
But today you're watching the Paranormal Files.
Yep. If you haven't listened to our episode, we have 2 parts. It's one of our most in-depth stories we've ever told, so.
And yeah, obviously, if it's not clear enough already,
Someone's looking through the window at us.
Viewer discretion is heavily advised for this episode.
In November of 1987, Jeffrey was ready for his next victim. He rented a room at the Ambassador Hotel and roamed around the local bars trying to find someone that would go back with him. After he spent some time prowling, Jeffrey found 25-year-old Steven Tuomi. Jeffrey went on to tell authorities that he didn't remember much from that night, but he made it a point to emphasize that he did not plan on murdering Steven. He just wanted to rape him. But the next morning, when Jeffrey woke up in the hotel bed, he looked over at Steven and noticed a big depression in his chest. It was completely crushed in. He had black and blue bruises all over his body, and there was a stream of blood coming out the sides of his mouth. Based on the injuries that Jeffrey noticed on his own hands, he then realized that he had murdered his second victim, even though he had absolutely no recollection of the event.
When I moved to Milwaukee in '81, I started reading, going to the bookstores. Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars. And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. I had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory
I
of it?
have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
I had put some sleeping pills in his drink to render him unconscious. And was just going to spend the night with him. When I woke up in the morning, my forearms were bruised and his chest was bruised and blood was coming out of his mouth. He was hanging over the side of the bed, and I have no memory of beating him to death, but I must have. And that's when it all started again.
And once it started again, you found it impossible to stop.
Right, that's when the obsession went into full swing.
Jeffrey then went to the store and bought a big suitcase so that he could remove Steven's body from the hotel without anyone noticing. After shoving the battered corpse inside of the bag, he brought the suitcase back to his grandmother's house, where he kept it for about a week. One day, when his grandmother wasn't around, Jeffrey finally found the time to remove Steven's corpse from the suitcase, and he proceeded to savagely dismember Steven's arms, legs, and head from his torso. After this, Jeffrey removed all of the bones from the body, set them aside, and cut the remaining flesh into tiny pieces before throwing the muscle and skin into some trash bags. Next, he pulverized the bones by wrapping them in a sheet and smashing them repeatedly with a sledgehammer.
Jeffrey threw away all of the bags full of flesh and bones. But in a disturbing twist, he decided to keep Steven's head. For 2 weeks, Jeffrey kept the head wrapped in a blanket at his grandma's house. Body parts definitely start to smell after 2 weeks. And I'm sure that Jeffrey knew he had to do something with the rotting head before his grandma noticed. So he decided to boil Steven's head in bleach. His goal was to boil off all of the remaining flesh so that he could use the skull to... But once he was finished boiling it, the skull was super brittle and didn't work in the way he wanted it to. So he decided to simply pulverize the head and discard it. Because Jeffrey disposed of Steven's body this way, his remains have never been located. But years later, Jeffrey would admit that Steven was his second victim.
Hey everybody, it's Colin here, the creator of the video. I just want to let you guys know I am so close to hitting 50,000 followers on Instagram, so if you could please head to my Instagram at The Paranormal Files and give me a follow, I would really appreciate hitting that huge milestone before the end of the year. Also, it's my birthday coming up and I'm trying to hit 600,000 subs in 2021 before 2022, so tell everybody you know about the channel, post a story of you watching the episode, tweet the episode out on Twitter, it doesn't matter. Any engagement helps. If you want to help support the channel, you can pick up a piece of brand new merchandise. Our store is going offline at the beginning of 2022. We've already sold some of the brand new merch and people are loving it. So you can pick up a piece of merch or become a patron. I love talking to you guys on Patreon. And basically, don't forget guys, like this video, leave me a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. If you want a chance to win free merchandise, please comment "I love true crime" in the comments section below. And a question for you all. In your opinion, what is the scariest true crime story you know? Let me know in the comments below because we're planning on filming some true crime related paranormal investigations next year, including a Son of Sam video that we're doing next week. So anyways, y'all, thanks for listening. I'm done with the promo and let's get back to the video. So our investigation is going to start here at the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee, at this famous room, room number 507. You can tell this room is famous because all of these other rooms have actual markers. This room is just paper on the wall. There's Mary down there. So, if you'll step inside the room with me, this is a very, very important room in the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. Step in. It was right inside here, in this space, where Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder in Milwaukee. He invited a man named Steven Tuomi, who he met at a bar, to come back with him, led him to this hotel, and proceeded to absolutely eviscerate him. Steven was never found. But it was here in this exact space where Jeffrey Dahmer brought Steven back, he drugged him, he assaulted him, and then ultimately Jeffrey in the morning woke up and Steven had been murdered. He was apparently laying next to him and Jeffrey had no idea what happened, as he would claim later on. We've already been in the room. It's definitely eerie in here. We don't know if this is where the bed has always been, you know, but I mean, just to imagine, this is the actual space where Jeffrey Dahmer murdered someone. It's the only accessible place. The other locations are houses, private residences, and his apartment complex is obviously gone, but this is the one place where you could come to actually connect and you can see it and feel it, you know?
So this is the one murder that Jeffrey Dahmer claims he does not remember, but he picked Steven up somewhere around Milwaukee and he brought him here. And then he said the next thing that he remembered was waking up. His hands were all bruised and bloody. Steven had injuries all over his face. his chest was caved in, and he was clearly dead. And then Jeffrey kind of panicked, went and bought a suitcase and stuffed his body into the suitcase in this room. And yeah, then he took him to his grandma's house and dismembered him.
And this is also crazy because Steven was never found. No trace of Steven, really. I mean, maybe bone fragments?
There was nothing.
Nothing. No trace of Steven's body was ever found. So this is the last known place, other than his grandmother's house, Jeffrey's grandmother's house, where Steven was seen. I mean, this was the last place publicly, was this hotel. And it's eerie to think about Jeffrey Dahmer himself walking through these very halls, coming to this exact doorway and coming in here ready to murder one of his victims, one of the most famous crimes in American history.
And beating someone to death right here.
It is really weird doing the show and everything, because even just coming here, it's dark. And I just keep having these flashes of just imagining like Jeffrey Dahmer like beating somebody or like attacking somebody, and I can't help but flash back in time to just see that, you know, because it happened right here in this space. It's hard to believe. So this is actually the morning after we spent the night here, and we already investigated, did all of that. We're just shooting the intro now. I gotta tell you guys, this is the worst sleep I've gotten anywhere on the trip. I feel horrible right now. My allergies are just going crazy. My chest doesn't feel the best. I just don't feel very good. I don't know if it's because of the room, the hotel, but...
I'll also say, I feel like don't you think that both of us just kind of get in like a bad mood when we were in here? Like, even last night, we had such a great night. We come into the hotel room and both of us are just kind of...
not vibing.
No, we were just kind of like angry for no reason. Almost like just like you can feel the bad energy in the room, and it rubs off on you almost, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because last night we were having a great time. Immediately we stepped in the room and we just started...
Just felt bad.
Felt horrible. It was weird.
But without further ado, let's go to the investigation, because we captured some very compelling stuff in here. And then we're off to more locations in the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and the story of the victims, more importantly. Jeffrey, I'm gonna start this audio recorder. Oh, the moment that I did that. What the hell? I've never seen that happen. K2's got a solid reading too. Is this Jeffrey Dahmer? Could you light that up if this is Steven Tuomi? Do you know the name Jeffrey Dahmer? Can you tell me who you are? Do you know the name Jeffrey Dahmer? Is that a bad name? If this is Steven, can you tell me what happened that night? There's definitely some energy in here. Oh. We're right in front of the bed. I want to point out as well, in hotel rooms and stuff, oftentimes if a crime happens or something bad happens, they'll rearrange the room and remodel it. And I'm pretty sure... Oh my god. So they did remodel it?
Oh my god. I can't believe that.
can see the room. Maybe like the bed could have been here.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I feel like this makes the most sense. I feel like the bed would.
Yeah, especially with the windows and the bathroom.
Right. So I think this is where it would have been.
Cool. Is this where the bed has always been? Can you touch that red light? Okay.
Should we go lights out?
Sure.
Because it gets really dark in here.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna put the REM pod and put these motion balls on the bed too.
Are you gonna sit up there?
Sure. I'm gonna stop the voice recorder.
What if we got like Jeff or Steven or something? Is Steven here with us?
Steven, it's you?
Oh my god. Steven, I know that you were murdered in this room. Your remains were never found. Does your presence still hang out around here? Are you angry about what happened to you?
Oh my god.
Oh.
Oh, motion ball too.
Wow. Another motion ball light.
That's crazy. Do you know the name Jeffrey Dahmer?
K2.
Oh my goodness. Do you hate the name Jeffrey Dahmer? This thing's going crazy.
I've never seen so much activity in a hotel room. Like you said, hotels usually don't have a lot of activity because so many people go through them, you know?
Huh. I'm gonna use a spirit box.
Look at the K2 too. Alright, Steven, we're gonna use another device so we can try and hear what you have to say.
You can talk to us, Steven, through this device. Steven, if it's you with us, can you say your name? What happened in this room? What happened in this room? Who killed you? Prescription pills?
Across the country.
You hear that? Prescription pills. Because wasn't he drugged? Who killed you? What? You hear that? What's the name of the man who killed you?
No way. Alright.
Steven, how old were you? I'm like shocked at how much that's going on.
Same. Steven, where is your body now?
public area.
Public area?
Mm-hmm. Remember when we went through that park yesterday and we were literally talking? We were talking. There's a park by Jeffrey Dahmer's grandma's house, and we were talking about like how Jeffrey probably disposed of his body there, or his remains, what was left of it. You know. That's crazy that it went off when we said that. When we were talking about that yesterday.
Steven, tell me again where your body ended up. Home.
This bad since
Can you state the name of the person who hurt you?
Where did you meet Jeffrey?
Shower. Oh my god. That just came. It got cold in here too.
It really did.
Holy
and all of the
shit.
lights are going.
Is there something to do with the shower? Do you want us to go over to the shower, Steven? If this is you? Have a look.
I heard that too.
Pointing in the direction of the shower over there.
Should we step over there? Look, it is pointing. It's the light closest to it.
Yeah, let's go over there. Maybe they like took a shower together.
Yeah.
What happened here in the shower? Water.
Were you killed in here? Oh, thank God.
Is this where you were killed, Steven?
I think he was killed in bed. Because Jeffrey said that he woke up and Steven was beaten half off the bed with his chest caved in.
Maybe it started in here, and then they went over to the bed.
Right.
And he just kept killing him, or he killed him in here and brought him over there.
Right. Because I was also thinking, like, it might be hard to, like, beat someone to death in a bed because it bounces, you know what I mean? So you would think that it would have had to start, like, on some solid floor, solid ground.
Okay, I'm gonna start another voice recorder session. That's so weird. Why did you bring us to the shower?
I really do feel like a heavy presence of something in here. I felt it yesterday when we first got here. Like I really do feel like there is someone here with us.
It's also interesting, like the K2 had a solid reading when we first put it on the bed.
Right. But like you said the other day, the REM pod is like one of the most accurate devices because like something has to be touching it. It's science.
Yeah.
And it's like that's been going off so much since we started. Steven, if you're here with us, we're so sorry about the way that you were killed. And we want to talk and communicate and help you in any way we can. Do you remember that night at all? What happened to you? He might not have remembered it because, you know, Jeffrey drugged his victims and gave them sleeping pills. But, like, Jeffrey doesn't remember it, you know?
True.
Or he claims that he doesn't remember it, and it's like, no one really knows but Steven. Did you and Jeffrey get into an argument that night? Did you tell him that you wanted to leave? Is that why he started? Remember the thing with Dahmer is like anytime any of his victims wanted to leave, that's when he would kill them, because he always wanted people he never wanted anyone to leave.
Control.
So, yeah, and like I strongly think that Steven probably told him that he wanted to go, and Jeffrey just snapped.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what happened, Steven? Did you try and leave this hotel room and Jeffrey didn't want you to?
But yeah, I want to state that too, that, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer, the whole story is so researched that almost every single detail is known about the case, except for really what happened right here in this room, because Jeffrey does remember it. The only other person that was there was murdered. So no one really knows the timeline of what went down that night. Just the fact that Jeffrey allegedly woke up and he saw Steven was dead in the bed next to him.
Also, Steven's case of all of them, everyone has the most questions about that case over anything, because not only do we not know what happened, but his remains were never found either.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one case that's just
Open-ended.
really unknown, yeah. And I'm sure that has to be hard on Steven too, that his remains were never found. He never got a proper burial or was able to rest in peace, you know. Do you feel like you're trapped here in this room? It's really sad.
Poor Steven, dude.
That's so sad. He was only, oh my god. He was only 24 too. That's literally our age.
Yeah. Oh.
We're sorry that your life was taken at such a young age. That's horrible. And in such a violent way. But if you don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered kind of the same way you were, but in prison. If that brings you any sort of peace.
Okay, so we've got the Ovulus here. Steven, if you have anything to say, feel free to say it.
Except single.
Except single what, Steven? If that's you who we're talking to.
Steven, if you're here with us, you can also use this Ovulus that we brought, and we can communicate a little bit better.
How exactly did you die?
Dives.
Dives? It's weird though that I said die and it said dives.
Right.
What does that mean?
Could you tell us, maybe what color hair you had?
Usually we ghost hunt in the dark, but since it's actually the morning right now, Steven, do you like when we bring the light in? Do you like it to be light in here?
John. Rent.
John, rent?
Missed.
Did you miss your rent payment?
Can you tell us what your name is on here?
Shy.
Shy. You don't have to be shy. We just want to talk to you.
Can you give us any clue as to where your body ended up? Any clue?
I feel like the dowsing rods would have been good in here.
I know. How do you feel? Sad, hurt, trapped, bored?
I feel like I just saw an orb.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Steven, how were you killed? Do you remember that night at all?
Right when that happened, someone just killed the speaker.
Really?
Yeah. Take drunk. Take pills drunk.
Were you drunk when you died? I know that Jeffrey was. Wow.
That's pretty
That's
crazy.
a very, like...
Jump. Once again, can you tell us anything about where your body ended up, Steven? Switch by.
Channeling.
What was that?
Did someone just fall?
Is there anything on the ground?
Voice recorder. It's kind of weird.
I was looking right at you, though, and nothing moved at all. Did you just knock that down, Steven?
That'd be so sweet if it just went. Just flew across the room.
Yeah. Money burning.
Was your body burned a little bit?
His body was boiled.
Mmm.
Jeffrey boiled his skull specifically. Because that was before Jeffrey started doing like the acid and everything. He would boil them. Also, his body sat in a suitcase for like a week.
Do you have anything left to say, Steven, that we could tell somebody that would help us bring you closure?
Scan.
You want us to look for something?
Ever.
Radio clear.
Want to use the spirit box one more time? Let's do it.
Xbox.
Fun part.
Violent appetite.
Violent appetite.
Jeffrey ate his victims, and he died in a violent, and Steven died in a very violent way.
Steven, can you give us one sentence about where your body is?
The middle.
The middle? The middle of what?
Really stand out.
What is in a hole?
Oh, conjuring boy. Can you tell us anything about what happened in this room? Steam wound. Maybe a shower? Something to do with the shower? Can you tell me, is there something to do with the shower that people don't know, Steven?
Risk glaucoma.
Welcome to the position.
I swear to God. I just heard like a creak or something like that. Maybe he likes to hang out in there because this room is
Oh, that's true.
so just horrible
Look at that.
memories.
Yeah, maybe that's the only part of the room where nothing bad happened.
Right, and so he just hangs out in there because hanging out here is just a lot. I can't imagine staying in, being trapped in the room that you were murdered in.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Are you in the shower? Are you in the bathroom, Steven?
That's weird too, because the REM pod did not go off for so long, and then
I
right
know.
when we asked that.
Do you like the shower better than the bedroom? What is it about the bathroom?
Just
Castle inside? Is it like your own castle in there that you can control? Well, Steven, I'm sorry we don't have longer to chat. We gotta go visit other places and help tell your story. But thanks for allowing us in here. We're really sorry for what happened to you. Maybe we'll see you again someday. But yeah, guys, we're gonna head out now because we're already way past our checkout time. On to the next spot. And thank you, Steven.
Thanks, Steven. We hope you rest in peace.
Steven, do you want to use this one more time? Say goodbye.
K2. Did you see the K2? With call?
noise every 12? Like a clock?
Very good question. Okay, yeah, let's wrap it.
Okay.
After leaving the Ambassador Hotel, I knew there was more of this story that we had to cover, and I knew just the guy that I needed to talk to. So we headed back to a location that we had just visited on the show. And crazily enough, the area that this location is in plays a very important role in this story. It's on the other side of Milwaukee. Join us as we take a hike. All right, so right now, we are on 2nd Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Obviously, we've been following the trail of Jeffrey Dahmer for the past couple of days. We just spent the night in the Ambassador Hotel. We investigated. We visited some other spots that have to deal with Dahmer. Right here, though, 2nd Street, this is the part of Milwaukee where Jeffrey picked up most of his victims. This bar right here used to be called the Phoenix. It's obviously abandoned now, but this used to be a nightclub called the Phoenix, and it was a place where a lot of people had good times, good memories, but a number of Jeffrey's victims came from there. Let's walk down right over here once again. It's weird to think about, you know, this street kind of being the street. But all these were bars right here, what we're looking at. Right over here was another nightclub called Club 219, where once again Jeffrey would frequent. And like I said, yeah, a lot of the victims, most of them came from this stretch of the city, these blocks, where Jeffrey would go out, party, then you would ply these victims with sedatives and drugs, and then assault and mutilate them after death. But yeah, actually, and it's that black one. But yeah, we're gonna be ending at Shakers, a place where it's not only famous for Jeffrey Dahmer's association, but the mob as well. A dead body was recovered there a couple of years ago, found in the ground. Crazy story, the owner, Bob, actually knew Jeffrey from coming in. He had served him drinks and stuff, so we're gonna be talking to him about that. And that's interesting, because Shakers is... Yeah, Jeffrey would have been right here walking these streets, and all those innocent lives that were essentially taken from this area here. You wouldn't expect it if you were just walking around here, you know? It just seems like an average street in an average city.
Right.
But just like with everything in this story, it is not average.
Keep off can shock, burn, or cause death. After checking out that notorious street, it was time to pay my friend Bob Weiss a visit. Let's head back to Shakers, where we were just investigating the night before. It is strange when you really dig into belief, you know? Sure. All right. So we're here at Shakers in Milwaukee, once again, right off of the street where Jeffrey would walk and procured a number of his victims. I'm here with Bob. He was already in Shakers video that you guys have probably seen already, but Bob has some personal connections to this entire story, and I'm gonna just let him talk. Also, I got a cigar. Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome, Colin. Thanks for the opportunity, of course. So again, we're here at Shakers Cigar Bar in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Shakers has been in existence since 1986, which makes us perfectly poised to have been at ground zero for any of the Dahmer frivolities in the city of Milwaukee. Our personal connection goes back to 1991, January. We have a very busy, vibrant, upscale bar and restaurant here, kind of like a Fog City Diner in San Francisco, rather. We have a disproportionate number of clientele which are either in law enforcement or the judiciary, and that could be district attorney's office and judges and cops and federal agents, and that's a big part of our gig here. But we also have the design world is here, and architects and those firms. So it's corporate America, and it's this other portion of a very rarefied clientele. So starting in January of 1991, we would have this guy walk in. Clearly he didn't belong here. He didn't look like he had any connection with anything here, and he always looked unhappy when he was here as well. And the thing about Shakers, there's 37 or 8 people on staff, and all but 2 or 3 are women. And it's been that way since I opened in 1986. So rather than go to one of the female bartenders or servers to make him his gin and tonic, he's adamant that they'd have a man make it for him. little bit odd by itself, right? So either myself, because I'm a chef, would come out of the kitchen, or my sous chef would walk out and make him his gin and tonic. There was no exchange whatsoever. There's no, I'm Jeffrey Dahmer, I'm a serial killer, you'll read about me one day. Just here's this really weird guy. And I frequently say, if you remember watching the original Jaws or Jurassic Park, where you've got the animal, whether it's a dinosaur or a shark, but they've got these eyes that just were piercing at you at the same time they look kind of dead, right? And I will never forget those gimlet-like eyes just glaring at me while I made him his gin and tonic, and that's it. So we typically have one or two of these things, and he just, again, glare at people. We had the exact same bar stools at the front and the back bar at that time, so we're going back a ways, right? This is 1990s. And there was one that always had like an extra spacer for some reason. It was 3/4 of an inch, just a little bit taller, and that's the one he would gravitate to, or wait till someone left, and then he'd sit on that one. I don't know why. If he could be above other people, I'm not really sure what the thing would be. So as time has gone by, I kind of put this together that I think that he came here for a couple of reasons, and one of those is that 2nd Street in Milwaukee used to have a lot of gay bars on both sides of us, alternative lifestyle establishments. So that was his hunting ground, and he'd walk up and down, and they were as far as 6 blocks that way or 6 blocks that way, and we're this little oasis in between that's got this real Tony clientele, right? So I think what he did is, it doesn't take long to make the determination and just to hear the word on the street that the judges are there and the coppers are there, right? So I think that because of the number of glitches that took place with the criminal justice system, time and again he was picked up for indecent exposure. Well, you seem like a nice young man, you've learned your lesson, none of this will happen again, right? I think that he just wanted to come here because he could be, in his mind, the biggest badass in the house, and nobody here knew who he was. He was, in his mind, I'm sure he was Teflon to them, right? Because he kept getting away with things. So we saw more of him as 91 went on, and then of course he was apprehended in July, and there's a fury of activity here with the coppers that are sitting here, and then late at night, well after midnight, 2 guys walk in that are as white as this little logo thing would be. And they asked for a bottle of scotch. We don't typically do bottle service here, but these guys were in need. We've seen them before. Here's your bottle of scotch. They drank that around their second one. Now the story is coming out. So if you remember when Dahmer was apprehended, on the front page of Time and Life and Look magazine and probably every publication, you got guys that are walking down the stairs with hazmat suits on. It's these guys. They had the contract with the city of Milwaukee for hazmat removal, and they saw things they'd never want to see. So scotch was their thing that night. We probably got rid of them after closing time, and then early in the morning, 7 o'clock or so, my phone rings, and it's one of the federal agents I know asking if we'd open early. And I'm thinking, 11 o'clock or something. He's like, how about now? I'm like, sure, I could drive down. And when I get here, there's a couple of coppers, the DA's office is here, DOJ is here, 2 and only 2 Milwaukee area media people. And their thought process was that they didn't want to get the national guys involved. They want the local people to take the story and maybe make it go away sooner. So anyway, I'm bleary-eyed behind the bar, and they're taking out the mugshots and passing along to everybody there, and I'm like, ooh, time out, I recognize this guy, and here's my story. I've served him gin and tonic, gin makes you sin, right? From there, we started getting all the backstory, so we got to see the initial pictures, and this is before the internet, so you couldn't just go to whatever and Google Dahmer pictures or something and see these horrific pictures. We got to see them. Here's the 8.5 by 11s of this and this and this and on, and all the devices that he used, and the barrels and the Soilax and whatever else. And it was just, it doesn't matter to me how many horror films I see or how of anything else. This is ugly. The things that one man could do to other people was horrific, right? And he was a monster. And then, of course, as a chef, I've got a whole different perspective on things to eat. And I would maintain that there was a time in Costa Rica that my then girlfriend and I were at a Peruvian restaurant, and there was just something wrong with this meat, way wrong with this meat. And I would suggest that could easily have been something which was not a cow, not a sheep, not a goat, not even a horse, not whatever, So, because I've had all those things. And this was something much different. And I would have to work on the assumption that with Dahmer being the king and eating people, There's nothing necessarily new about this, because if you read a lot about different civilizations, they have long thought that if you eat your enemy, you get the power from your enemy as well. So I don't think he was looking for the power necessarily, but I think he was looking to keep part of them with him at all times. So what we do on our tour, and again, we don't sensationalize this. We work with different universities. We get their psych departments here, the criminal justice departments. And we get actual federal agents from Quantico that are studying serial killers to come and take our tour. We've done a very rigorous job in researching this. New material comes out every once in a while. We go back and dig in things as much as we can. And I'm constantly amazed at the connectivity, the 6 degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon kind of thing. There are so many stories of people in Milwaukee that had been picked up by him or something else, or even not far away from where the Oxford Apartments used to be, there is a strip club. We have heard from numerous over the course of time, different strippers, the bouncers, whatever, that Dahmer would go in there, it's late at night, he's already in the bag, and he's just looking to pick someone up. And he didn't care if it's a male or a woman, quite frankly. Obviously, the 17 Vics that are associated with him are all male. And when we first started doing this tour, the backstory on that is that my girlfriend and I were in Key West. We had to be asked 20 times the first day, as people say, where are you from, Colin? And you'll say, Austin, Texas. And I'd say, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And they'd say, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer. So I said to her, because we're obviously already in the tour business, I said, when we get back, we have to do a Dahmer tour. We, and a lot of that was her, doing research on that, and then bringing in the detectives, and we talked to the detectives that both booked him in and the ones that did the interview with him, everybody from the district attorney's office down. We get so much of that story, his defense attorneys, and then we talked to the psychologists as well that are customers here that would talk about, in general terms, about their interview with him, or a series of interviews with him. And the guy's nuts. There's no question about that. But my takeaway is that it easily could be you or you or you. It could be anybody, the monster next door, quite frankly. You just never know. And everybody has a certain capacity inside of them, at least this is my assessment, to do really bad things. And unfortunately, we've got a social compact going that we, by and large, don't do that. But it wouldn't take much. And especially today, anything you want to get, whether it's information on Google on how to butcher a carcass, not necessarily a human carcass, but a carcass, that's there. And different ways to melt bones and to dispose of evidence and all sorts of things. Different ways to take skulls and to de-meat them, whatever else. You can research and learn everything you want today. And he didn't have that. You got to think about that. He didn't have the opportunity to use the internet, so he had to go to the library. He had to develop his own methodology for this stuff, and he was clearly obsessed with that. Now, if you look at the Stone Phillips interview, one of my big takeaways is that his father was always there fawning at him, rubbing his arm, fawning him. From my perspective, and my perspective as a parent, there's something wrong there. And though they don't really talk about the record of Dahmer being, but that is my takeaway. Mm-hmm. So I think, obviously the parents to get along. His mom was at least bipolar, and because you see that in the interview as well. And then her latter years, she was so medicated. I'm sure she didn't have really a clue where she was. But that record goes back to even when the parents were married and they had these horrific fights. So it was a bad landscape for the kid. The father was into taxidermy as well, so he taught the kid some of the early things, right? Then the child just had a really non-attentive family environment and got himself caught up in anything from, the oil in the guppies kind of thing, whatever else, and just ways to dispose of life, I guess is the polite way to put that. Not that we necessarily need to be polite about him. But the ramifications of what he did for Milwaukee were significant, because every news outlet available was here filming. And they're talking about, how rundown Milwaukee is, and this desperate area, and the warehouse district, and the reason why we have to have so many gay bars, whatever else. It had a huge impact on the amount of investment taking place in Milwaukee. A lot of firms moved out of Milwaukee, and it was really a black spot for a number of years. I would probably go a little further in this conversation to say that, perhaps once upon a time there was a reason for there to be lesbian bars, gay bars, whatever else, because people didn't fit in. Times, I think, have changed so much that you don't have that now. There's an awful lot of very prominent people in the Milwaukee political scene, and I'm sure I'm only talking about this because this is where I am all the time, who are alternative lifestyle. And they can openly talk about that now, but they couldn't 30 years ago. But I don't think there's a need for gay bars now, so I think that opportunity for someone to be a stalker, going after these kids that are 14, 15, 16 years old, that probably made the revelation to their parents that they're gay, out of the closet, and the parents like, get out of the house, right? So they've got nowhere to go. So they came down to the gay bars here, the bathhouses that were here, where they were given a job as a bath boy. And they were prime material for Dahmer then to take advantage of them. So I think to that degree, society has learned, and that's mostly off the table now, because you don't have that environment. Who cares anymore, right?
Right.
So I think that's a part of the way things have changed for the positive, but this is after a long time of real negativity that took place. It didn't cause it, but it certainly reinforced his ability to do that. Obviously, he was, if you studied this, he was in the military as well. He was in the Army. He was kicked out because he was an alcoholic. Now, there's a storyline that he was abused in the military by one of his sergeants as well. So I would like to think that today's military is far more aware and better prepared, and once upon a time they would take any scufflaw who got a jam with the law and, here's your out, you go to jail, you're in the Army, right? Go to the Army, right? So I think that now it's we don't have that, and I think the last 20 years with the military is a much different military. So you don't have that level of idiocy on a regular basis. I mean, you read about things in Bragg every once in a while because, Fort Bragg is... But aside from that, I think the Army's better, and I think society is better. And one of the things that we look at with our Cream City Cannibal Tour here is that we teach valuable lessons on a daily basis. Don't accept drinks from strangers. Don't leave your drink at the bar unattended. Don't go home to have someone take nude pictures for $50. Any number of things. And yet, we still see, especially young women that'll come here, and they'll do all those things, which is want and disregard, well, that'll never happen to me. Right. Let's hope not, but you can easily take a couple of steps to ensure that it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sure none of those guys thought that it would happen to them either,
No. Day to get murdered. So many missteps. It wasn't just with the judicial system that had him and let him go. It's the way the police department was run in Milwaukee at that time, where you had an attitude of this kind of laissez-faire kind of thing. I know the coppers that had arrested him. Well, first, I know the coppers that could have arrested him that had Cynthia Sapone and turned the 14-year-old Laotian boy back over to him, who was naked, bleeding from the hole in his skull, and we'll turn him back over to you.
On May 26, 1991, just 2 days after Jeffrey had murdered Tony Hughes, he was ready to kill again. And this time, he was hoping to perfect his method of creating his living zombie. So he starts driving around the city, and he comes across 14-year-old Conorak Synthesiphone. Jeffrey pulls his car over, and he asks the young boy if he would come back to his place and pose for some pictures. Conorak declines the offer at first, but when Jeffrey offers him money, he agrees. When the two get back to Jeffrey's apartment, Jeffrey drugs him and takes several photos of the minor. Jeffrey then brings Conorak into his bedroom, where the body of Tony Hughes is lying naked on the floor. Jeffrey stated later that he thought Conorak saw the body, but he never said anything because the drugs were starting to kick in. Jeffrey then orally rapes Conorak and suffocates him. At this point, Jeffrey decides that he's gonna try out the living zombie scenario again, and he thinks that maybe this time he will get it right. So Jeffrey takes his drill, walks over to Conorak, and drills a hole into the 14-year-old's head. He then injects acid inside of his brain. Now, obviously, Conorak goes unconscious after this horrific act is carried out, but he doesn't die immediately. So Jeffrey decides that he's gonna leave Conorak in the apartment for a while he goes to the bar for a few drinks. But this would prove to be a big mistake on Jeffrey's end.
While Jeffrey is out at the bar getting drinks, 14-year-old Conorak miraculously wakes up after having acid poured inside of his brain. He's disoriented and confused, but he knows that something is terribly wrong and he needs to get out of there immediately. So he stumbles over to the door and runs outside completely naked. As he's out there, two of Jeffrey's neighbors, who are a mother and daughter, see Conorak and know inside of them that something is extremely wrong. They stated that Conorak was clearly in a lot of distress. He was terrified, incoherently speaking Laotian, completely naked, with a stream of blood coming out of his room. And they didn't know exactly what happened, but they could tell that the boy needed help. So they called 911.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm on 25th and State, and there's this young man. He's buck naked. He's been beaten up. He's really hurt.
All right, we'll send an officer out.
Before law enforcement arrives, Jeffrey Dahmer pulls back up to his apartment, and he sees the chaos going on outside. Jeffrey runs over to where they're standing, and Conorak immediately retracts away from his attacker. Jeffrey tried to convince the women that Conorak was his boyfriend and that this was all a big misunderstanding. But the two women can sense that something is wrong. So they put themselves in between Conorak and Jeffrey until the police arrive.
The cops show up a few minutes later. Keep in mind, Conorak is drugged out of his mind, and he has a hole in his head that was filled with acid, and he isn't speaking any English. So the cops just talk to Jeffrey instead. And Jeffrey assures them that this is his 20-year-old boyfriend named John Mung, and that the two had gotten into a fight and that Conorak was just really drunk. But the women at the scene knew that something was wrong, and it was very clear to them that that boy was not 20 years old. He was obviously just a child. But Jeffrey insists. And instead of the cops looking further into the situation and reading all the signs that the boy in front of them was giving them, showing them that he was in trouble, the cops decided that they didn't want to deal with it. The two officers then grabbed 14-year-old Conorak by the arms and helped him get back inside of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. And within 20 minutes of Conorak being back inside of apartment 213, Jeffrey once again pours more acid into his brain and he dies immediately. Conorak's synthesim phone was Jeffrey Dahmer's 13th murder victim. This is audio from one of the officers that responded to that call, speaking at the trial.
1991, you were a City of Milwaukee police officer, is that correct?
That's correct.
You pulled into that alley with your squad lights on?
The headlights of the squad car were on, yes.
And you got out of the car?
That's correct.
What did you do after you got out of the car? What did you see and what did you do?
I exited the car. I was the passenger of the car. There was a group of people in the alley, and they were all pointing to a white male and a second Asian male who was naked just east of our location in the alley. My partner came up to me and told me that he had obtained information from the white male to whom he was talking to, and basically that the Asian male's name was John Hamung and that he was 20 years old and that he had been staying with him for the last, I believe he said, 2 to 3 weeks.
Had been staying with whom?
With Mr. Dahmer. He also had obtained Dahmer's name at that point. Officer Perupkin and myself and the Asian male and Jeffrey Dahmer began walking toward the rear of the apartment. While we walked back to the apartment, Mr. Dahmer spoke of the crime in the neighborhood and how bad he thought it was. He said he was glad that the police were in the neighborhood and that there was a need for the police. I believe he may have been smoking a cigarette during that time. As we got near to the apartment building, it was the rear of the apartment building, obviously, he spoke of the need for extra locks on his apartment and that he had a security system because of the crime and the nature of the neighborhood.
He showed you up to his apartment.
That's correct.
And he convinced you that you could go about your business, that he had everything under control.
We were convinced that all was well.
And there wasn't anything that you saw that could for one moment have caused you to believe that there was any problem at all, correct?
There was nothing.
The police officers involved in this night were Joseph Gabrish and John Balserzak. They would later be fired for this incident for a number of reasons. First, neither officers wrote a report about what happened that night. Secondly, after it happened, the two officers were heard radioing back and forth, and they were laughing about the incident because it was between two gay men. Here is a little clip of their banter.
The intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his
Lastly, they also radioed in about needing to get cleaned off after having dealt with a gay couple. Conorak, Synthis, and Phone would probably still be alive today if the police officers would have done their job that night. If they would have just looked up Jeffrey's history, they would have known that Jeffrey had recently gone to prison for Conorak's older brother. That's right, the 13-year-old that Jeffrey had gone to prison for years earlier was Keeson, Synthis, and Phone. And fortunately enough for him, he was able to escape Dahmer that day. His younger brother, Conorak, unfortunately did not, and would become one of Jeffrey Dahmer's 17 victims.
First, I know the coppers that could have arrested him that had synthesopone and turned the 14-year-old Laotian boy back over to him, who was naked, bleeding from the hole in his skull and from his butt. And oh yeah, okay, we'll turn him back over to you. Those things don't happen anymore. Milwaukee police are, it's a much different organization. You've got an awful lot of really smart cops here, and things could always go wrong, but I can't imagine that scenario happening again. I can't imagine, even though we don't have an actual chief at the moment, I can't imagine the administration allowing that to take place with the line officers either. A mess, obviously, but again, we're not unique. So he came from Ohio, so he was notorious in Milwaukee, but he came from Ohio. That's what his first murder was as well. There were also, I think, 5 Vicks that had disappeared. Certain circumstances were really the same when he was in the Army in Germany. And then the consensus is that he did not do the things in Florida, and yet that always comes up in conversation. I think that the reason that he admitted to things here in Wisconsin is that there was not a death penalty. In Germany, there certainly would be. In Florida at the time, there certainly was. So I think that has to be looked at in the context as well, because he himself didn't want to die. And in latter years, he was born again. Obviously, the prison system let a lot of people and things down by letting he and Judge Anderson be together with Scarver, and Scarver, of course, killed them both. They're all under extreme lockdown. They should not have been allowed to mesh together at any given time. And I would probably work in the assumption that a lot of those things in prison still take place because they don't have the same standards that the police department does or anybody else does. That's my story on Dahmer.
So I got a question.
Sure.
Most of the time, a lot of the hauntings that we study, especially on the show, come from a crime. Because, the act of taking a life, not only the person losing their life, but the act of the person taking the life, that energy stains a location. But with Dahmer, the Oxford apartments are gone. A lot of these bars where he picked people up are closed, I noticed, on the street. They're just shells. Where do you think, if there was a place, there would be some of this energy left over?
If you go and walk at the location of the former Oxford apartments, there is a darkness. If you are remotely sensitive to some things, you can feel that there is a palpable shift that's there. If you go down the street to where the 219 Club used to be, I had considered buying that at one point, and we got a tour of the inside. I would have made a museum there. When you walked inside at that point, everything, the walls were painted black. They had cut out to make it like a balcony. The second floor was primarily gone except the seating area around the perimeter. They had a huge, massive stage. They had black shag carpeting, but everything was black, black, black. And this has got to be 20 years after the fact. And it was dank and dark and desperate, and it's like going to a casino where you've got all these people that are, the desperation. You can feel, you can sense, you can smell that desperation. Mm-hmm. So 20 years later, 219 still smelled like that, and there is at least when I was inside, there was a presence that was ungodly dark and malicious and unhappy. So somebody had opened up maybe right before the pandemic, good timing, and she called it the Rec Room, and they did some artsy-fartsy kind of thing there. Talked to her, she had no idea about the infamous nature of 219, that address, that building. She had no idea that even the Rec Room was a gay bar that was by the art school that was a real rad BDSM kind of a thing. So, you know, you're naming your art project something that has a untoward connotation in Milwaukee as it is, and you're putting it in a place that's associated with this, one of the worst serial killers of all time. Do your research first, right? You can go walk down there. We cover this, of course, Cream City Cannibal Tour. We go to all these spots and we talk about the things that took place there, and we give you the names, we give you the dates, we gave you the methodology. The front part of the tour is a much easier portion of the tour, and when you get back to the second half of the tour, that is the meat of the tour, and it is heavy material, and we don't pull any punches, and we're not there for sensationalism, just as a matter of fact, and of record. Here's the court record. This is what took place, and this is what he said he did, and why he did it. It's heavy material. So not for kids. We don't let kids on the tour at all. Well, people sometimes like, well, they watch everything on TV. It's just not quite the same. Thank you. You know, do your own thing.
Right.
Just don't come to us.
Tell them afterwards.
So Hangman Tours does, that's our tour division. We do over 20,000 tours per year. We have people that come literally globally to take our things. It's a very non-Milwaukee perspective. In many ways, it's like the Savannah operation. So people come a long distance for the, I guess, of the many things I would have thought that I would have been known of in my life or known for, Dahmer is not remotely part of anything I want to be associated with. And yet, I do a lot of interviews just like this, where people are fascinated by Dahmer and just want to know whatever. And I'm just the guy that happened to be in that place at that time with the location that was midpoint that he stopped at. And then we've got all the legalese that goes along with that. So we got all the other information, and a lot of these coppers are personal friends of mine. So we have a different perspective that you're just otherwise not going to get. First person, I suppose, but again, nothing. I wake up in the morning and go, God, another interview on Dahmer. This is so great, you know. So,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So your bar was on the street where he obviously picked up a lot of victims. Did you notice did that affect your business at all afterwards? Like, or were people still...
Oh, Courtney, yes, absolutely. Everyone's business in downtown Milwaukee, and Milwaukee overall, but any entertainment site, bars, restaurants, this is the Walker's Point area, one of the 3 original parts of Milwaukee. Anything that's here was dramatically impacted. The 3rd Ward, 3 blocks away, was dramatically impacted. We had a ton of ad firms here, and anything to do with the photographic industry, color scripting, whatever else is here, a lot of those moved out. Look at Ambrosia Chocolate. So Ambrosia Chocolate is a place he worked at, 1133 North 5th. The city annexed part of another city, so they can move them there to get them way away from downtown Milwaukee. And a lot of things took place that way. And you think about these phenomenal philanthropists that we have in Milwaukee that came forward to acquire the Oxford apartment and to acquire all the paraphernalia and to destroy it. Milwaukee really attempted hard to get away from that. When we started doing this, was it 12 or 13 years ago, we wanted to erect a monument at a small mini park 2 blocks away from here with the names of all the Vics. City would not allow that. We don't want to admit that happened. We want to get past that. Well, it's history. You know, you can't. And literally, there are, if you look at this from a different perspective, there are valuable lessons that took place here to research things like that. And again, you just never know who it is, but Courtney could be the next serial killer. Now, we had a guy up this late spring, early summer, and we get 3 pieces on him on our YouTube channel, the Shakers Milwaukee channel. And this guy came here to take the Dahmer tour, and he looks an awful lot Dahmer-esque. Not exactly like Jeffrey Dahmer, but he's kind of Dahmer-esque, right? So we did 3 parts. We did an interview with him, and in the interviews, he's talking about these dreams he has, how he thinks that someone is, on top of him and breaking his legs with a hammer, and someone's eating him. And then at different points, he's thinking himself about people. And one of the things he said in one of these is that he wants to be just like Dahmer. He wants to be the next Jeffrey Dahmer. You just never know. So he changed his appearance. He was staying at the Ambassador Hotel, and he happened to be in Dahmer's room, and the darkness that was there as well, and how that kind of helped him to morph, to shave and to change his hair, and to lose weight, and to restructure his body shape so he looks like Dahmer.
Wow.
And it's really kind of uncanny. And we took him up as well to the Oxford Apartments. And then we got one of the detectives who was the booking detective for Dahmer, and we hooked up at the Milwaukee Police Department in one of the interrogation rooms, stuck a Dahmer shirt on him just so there was no question what's going on.
Right.
And then the detective, Phil Slawinski, does as if he were an actual interview. So, Mr. Dahmer, okay if I call you Jeffrey? Jeffrey, can you tell me about and this kind of a thing? And this guy is just completely into character. He's not a character. He's, in his mind, he's Jeffrey Dahmer. Wow. So he's in Cedar Rapids, and, he wants to move to Milwaukee, and he wants to recreate the magic. Yeah. Nutbags everywhere.
Wow.
So
he actually wants to move here to impersonate Jeffrey Dahmer?
I don't know if you want to say impersonate. He doesn't want to be the Jeffrey Dahmer impersonator. He wants to be another serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So we all have goals, right?
Right, seriously. So obviously most of the victims went missing along this street. Did you ever get word? I know that they were kind of minorities, so they didn't have a lot of press, but around that time, did you ever hear of men are going missing along this street? Or
there was one particular victim, and you can look this up, where the family did report him and followed up with that. But for the most part, the families didn't care. These are lost people. A lot of them didn't hold jobs or hold them well, so it wasn't like their employment was looking for them. They just disappeared. And there are transients all over the place that disappear. There's a story that's not about Dahmer we could talk about with the place that is next door that's not open now, that once a month they would have this horrific stench coming from their incinerator downstairs, to the degree that, and we had talked to MPD about this a couple of times, and finally some other people started complaining about this who had a business down the road, and then they got the search warrant or whatever. Initially, they would not allow people to come inside, so that's why the search warrant had to be gotten. That took several hours, and by the time the coppers came back then with the search warrant, this entire, as they describe it, the entire incinerator had been shopped back clean, and everything had been bleached and whatever else, and there was nothing else there. There wasn't enough to then scrape for DNA samples or something, because they're looking for something more significant, substantial. But I would just say that things happen all the time. And I'm not necessarily saying, by the way, they killed people next door and incinerated them, but I think that just in the course of time, we are so busy, and especially in major cities, people can disappear right now. You could walk out to the car right now and you just be gone, and okay, they'll miss you, right?
Yeah.
But where are you? You're gone.
In a city this big, it's kind of going to get overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's crazy.
And you think about police departments are so, especially now, are so overburdened, are so understaffed, overworked, and it'd be easy for people to disappear.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Happen anywhere.
Well, and I guess one step further, you think about like Los Angeles and probably parts of New York, there's a significant BDSM scene, and even beyond that point, and maybe not snuff films, but whatever abhorrent things people can do to each other, they're going to do to each other, right? And then it's just one step beyond, frankly.
Right. That's so true.
Well, Bob, I know we don't have too much time here left, and my camera battery's going to die, which is the main thing.
Great, though.
But thank you for the cigar.
Colin, it's my pleasure, and I hope that, if you have more conversations, I'd be happy to. People can reach out to me all the time, shakersmilwaukee@gmail.com, or Bob at Hangman Tours, and I'd be happy to answer some things. But I'm thrilled that this interview has gone this well as the last one, because I like the fact that you have researched and you're interested in a realm that a lot of people doing podcasts are not.
Yeah.
So thanks for the opportunity, and I hope you enjoy Milwaukee, and I guess you guys are staying tonight, right?
Yeah, we are.
Well, careful what you wish for.
Oh, okay.
We were getting closer to the truth. I don't know what's haunting Milwaukee, what stain these crimes have left, but it's left something. And where's the next logical place to go looking for the ghost of Dahmer, the spirits of some of those very unfortunate victims? Naturally, it would be the former location of the apartments where he carried out most of these slayings, where most of these people met sad and untimely ends. It was time to visit the location of the former Oxford apartments.
From our investigation, we feel that this individual strongly is involved in other homicides. We have taken evidence out of the building by the medical examiner to be examined.
Police removed boxes and boxes of body parts, evidence of what appears to be a psychopathic mass murder. Authorities also took out a barrel of what they think is acid. Police are reluctant to reveal exactly how many victims there might be, but knowledgeable investigators say it could be more than a half a dozen. Neighbors say the man was strange and that there was an odor coming from the apartment. However, no one suspected the accumulation of dead bodies.
And the next thing I know, I heard the police open the refrigerator door, and they said it was a dead body in there.
Police are questioning the suspect downtown. All we really know about him is that he is 31 years old.
I really don't know much about him. I know he's a single guy, and he works every day, and he's like to stay to himself.
When police returned to arrest the man, there was a struggle, and the uniformed police officers made the horrific discovery: dismembered human remains, decapitated heads in a refrigerator freezer, limbs and male genitals in other containers, and a large barrel full of acid. The male victims allegedly killed by a 31-year-old man, Jeffrey Dahmer, a man with a criminal history. Police have been here all day, pulling any potential evidence from the apartment and retrieving more possible human remains from a dumpster and on the ground behind the apartment. Authorities are assembling a criminal case against Dahmer, and in doing so, the district attorney is asking any potential witnesses or assault victims to come forward. According to police sources, Jeff Dahmer was telling them about the killings. How many? 14, 15, maybe more.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to, I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them?
Right, right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
In this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts. Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something. If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons. And I even went so far as planning on setting up an altar with the 10 different skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial. A point where I could, it's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts and feed my obsession.
When the bodies were still in your apartment, there was no time when you would see them and say, this is grotesque, what have I done?
There were times, but the compulsive obsession with doing what I was doing overpowered any feelings of revulsion.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
The Oxford apartments are gone. Where do you think, if there was a place, there would be some of this energy left over?
If you go and walk at the location of the former Oxford apartments, there is a darkness. If you are remotely sensitive to some things, you can feel that there is a palpable shift that's there.
All right, everybody, it's Colin here.
And Courtney.
Mary and Jeff are over here. We are currently at the old Oxford Apartments location. Now, This is where Jeffrey Dahmer lived, where most of the murders were committed here in Milwaukee. But as many of you probably know already, the original Oxford apartments were razed in the wake of the crimes. So the building is no longer here. It's now a vacant lot that no one will build on. It's just empty. So we're gonna walk over there and do some investigating. It's late at night. Jeff's right here, he's got the SLS. It's crazy to imagine back in the day when that building was right here. It was on the second floor, so.
That was, I'm pretty sure gunshots.
That was gunfire. I cannot believe we just got that on camera, gunfire.
Oh my God.
You know? Yeah. I wonder if somebody just, died.
This is the area where, like, Conorak ran out bleeding from his head, where the cops came and essentially brought him back over. It definitely is a really eerie vibe here, for sure.
Yeah, like Bob said in his interview with us, this area has a darkness, just a genuine sadness to it, and a just cold stillness, you know? It's not like this is one of those places where you're gonna come and see a ton of paranormal activity. It's just eerie. Let's just walk up and down the street with the SLS and see what we can get.
It's just such a dark,
It just
eerie vibe.
It really feels like you shouldn't be here, you know? What are you feeling over here?
Courtney, stay there. Courtney, stay there. Stay still. Stay still.
Don't move.
Right down here. On the ground, laying on the ground like it's dead.
Oh my God.
Film Courtney too. It's like a body.
It is.
Literally, it looks. Mary, get it.
Yeah, you gotta stay on here. Stay there, Courtney.
Look at Courtney, and it's going off right there.
Oh my God. Look at this.
That was like, and there's
Courtney,
nothing that this
Courtney,
can be
just put your
right
arms
here.
out. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Look at this. What the?
That is literally a dead body. Wow. And look at that. It is continuing to trigger the SLS.
Oh my God.
Okay. Wow.
That is just creepy.
I mean, what could this be
What is
mapping,
this?
you know?
Yeah.
Oh, look out. Somebody's coming. Here, set it right here. All right, so here's the REM pod. Technically, the REM pod is actually on the grass, touching the same earth where the apartment, once was. So, yeah, I guess if anything's gonna happen here, it's gonna be, better to have it on the ground that the apartment once sat on.
Which I don't think that they had.
Right when I said that too.
Oh my God. I don't know if they had this fence
No,
when
they
the
didn't.
apartment was here, so it's not like the fence was there in the first place, you know?
I'm waiting. I wonder if it's kind of following Courtney, but
That SLS body was
But
strange.
that thing just going off now. And it's
Yeah, and look at that. Courtney, why don't you ask? This is the place where, like Bob said, Dahmer's spirit would be.
Is Jeffrey Dahmer here with us? Are any of Dahmer's victims here with us tonight?
Steel, right when that went off. I wonder what that has to do with anything. What do you think?
Yeah.
Finished. Finished teas. What do you mean by finished teas, whoever's here?
Oh, there's another one.
Gone, test gone,
On the
truck.
ground behind you.
Oh yeah. There's like bodies all
Look
over.
at.
And they're all like laying. It's crawling towards
It's
Courtney.
behind you, Courtney.
And it's going off right there.
Holy crap, this is bizarre.
And
It's on the ground.
what would it be mapping? It's the grass.
Just real slowly.
Look at that.
Courtney, hold your arms out. Yeah, like that. Okay, it's come up. It's laying on the ground yet. Wow, this is freaky, man. Look at that.
Test gone, truck.
Prayer stream was playing. Do you want another victim? You. Oh, he just said you after I asked that.
Just stand right here.
Music portal? You. I've never seen you before.
I think it means you, because you would be a victim.
Oh, yeah, me.
Look, it's going on.
Yeah, young man. Mad am not.
You're not mad. They're not mad.
Is that a victim speaking, or could it be the energy left over by, you know? It's eerie to think that he was up there somewhere, you know? No way.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre.
It's gone. It's gone. I think we should go a little farther, another area.
Yeah, let's
because of
do it.
Courtney. I think maybe these bodies are starting to show themselves.
What was Jeffrey's favorite?
Just drinking.
Oh.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer. That's actually very interesting. Jeffrey Dahmer was a hardcore alcoholic. And look, here's some bottles of liquor. But he liked a gin and tonic, right?
Yeah,
That's what
but,
Bob was
I mean,
saying. But still, hard liquor was his choice.
Yeah, maybe
and
keeping
beer.
it by here, it would.
Of course, now there's sirens.
I know,
After
right?
those gunshots.
Seriously.
I cannot believe the moment that we got here, there was a...
Hold my phone for
Yes,
me
of
while I do this.
course. Oh, yeah.
No, the moment we got out here,
Duh.
gunfire. Jeffrey, if that is you here, what you did was terrible. I know you gave a lot of interviews. Is there anything that you would have left to say to anybody? Left Mason?
It's kind of weird.
Right.
When you said left to say, and then it says left.
Mm-hmm. Right. I just said
Yeah.
left to say. Is rust.
By myself running. Fall. Running, surface, fall. Jeffrey, do you still have the urge to kill?
Oh my god. The moment you asked that.
Seriously.
Anything on the Ovulus?
Mm-mm.
What the f***, dude, that's crazy. So Jeffrey, you still want to kill? All right, Courtney. Jeff, let's see if we can pick up another. That is so interesting.
I think it interacts with Courtney. Let's let her map.
That keeps going on.
I know, that thing's going
That's
crazy.
creepy.
Right after Courtney asks if it wants to kill still.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel bad about what you did? Purgatory.
Purgatory?
Oh.
No. Here, Mary. Burning in purgatory?
Burning in purgatory.
That's
After you said, do you feel bad about what you did?
Quiet.
Quiet. You want us to turn the device off?
Oh my god.
That is insane. Okay.
Are any of Jeffrey's victims here with us? Are you with us, Conorak?
We should grab the K2.
Yeah.
Here, I'll go grab it. You guys keep filming.
Afraid. I asked if Conorak was here, and the Ovulus said afraid, which is clearly what his last moments were like. He was running around frantic at wanting help, and nobody helped him. It also says beer. Jeffrey would like to drink, so that's interesting. Inside? Beer inside? I want to turn this back on.
Yeah.
just 'cause, like, if any of Jeffrey's victims are here, do you feel like you've gotten any answers, any peace after what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what emotion that you feel 30 years later? We know that there are many of you here that Jeffrey killed, and it was 30 years ago this year. I hope that you've been able to come to some kind of peace or get some kind of answers that you wanted.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we've set up the paranormal music box right there. Pointing into the complex. Okay. It's calibrating right there. We got all the devices really set up. Okay, I'm gonna do a voice recorder session right now.
Most wicked.
Most wicked. All right, who are we speaking to right now?
Some.
Some?
Like maybe like multiple. Mama?
Mama? Some mama?
No.
Or maybe it's some of the victims, they want to see their moms again. I'm gonna step a little closer.
Yeah.
Can you tell me your name?
Can you tell us how many spirits are here with us right now?
Come walk over here. Let's see. Who are we talking to right now? Are you a killer or were you someone that was killed? Someone that was killed.
Ghost.
Oh.
Ghost.
Get it.
Ghost.
Does it? Oh my god.
It literally said ghost.
Okay,
Chris?
look
Did he have any?
Yes.
Did he have any? Look, it says Chris. I don't know. I can't remember if he had any.
Chris? Look, you see that? Look at. Oh, they're coming towards us right now.
Oh my god.
Look at all of this. Can you tell me what happened to you? Speak clearly, please.
Wow,
The
this
REM
is.
pod and the music box just going off like crazy. Okay. Do you know a man named Jeffrey Dahmer?
Both of them.
What the hell, dude?
Do run.
Do run.
Do run. Look, Mary. Do run.
Oh.
Maybe it's the victims trying to warn us that this is like evil and saying like run.
Purified. He used to purify the bones, cleanse them.
Do you remember what happened to you on the night that you were murdered?
I cannot believe.
That's crazy.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this. I'm gonna review that later.
Divided several. What if the fence is dividing?
Or did he divide several bodies?
Yeah.
Oh, divided into several parts.
Because they said what happened to you the night you died.
Right.
Yeah.
He divided.
He literally dismembered his victims. That is so sad. Circumstantial paranormal stuff. It's just so weird. We're here investigating a notorious murders that took place right here. And as we're here investigating, gunshots and cop sirens. You know? It's just strange when you think about it.
No.
Eerie.
Okay, if there's somebody here with us right now, can you tell me what your name is? Jeffrey. I heard Jeffrey.
No.
I heard Jeffrey. If that's you, can you say that louder, please?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
Please tell us your name if you can.
How old were you?
Bob.
You know. Bob, strangled.
How were you killed?
Prison.
It seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do.
Prison. How were you killed? Prison. Jeffrey was killed in prison, if you didn't know, by a man named Christopher Scarver. If this is Jeffrey who we're talking to,
Do you still want to kill? Are there more victims that were never found?
90. Ooh.
91, yeah. Maybe another victim was killed in 90 that was never found or identified?
Trouble away. Chain. He would chain them up sometimes and then he would handcuff them so they couldn't escape.
Do you feel like you're trapped here on this property? Central. Oh, you feel the rain?
Fight.
It's about to rain. You feel rain on us?
Oh, it is gonna rain, guys. Maybe we get the music box.
Yeah.
Better get that protected.
Scared.
I am scared right now.
Scared. Continue west. I wonder which way we're facing right now. Slain.
Okay.
Can you tell us your name, whoever you are? Oh, it definitely feels dark.
It feels really dark.
If this is Jeffrey, why did you do what you did? Do you have any explanation for us? We're standing on the ground right now of the Oxford Apartments. I don't know which end his apartment was on, but it was somewhere around here. Gone. Yeah, it is gone. It is gone. The apartments are gone. Freeze, like the fridge. Cable. Okay, I'm gonna kill this. Okay, well, I think we got some really good stuff here.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, he pretty much explained everything about his crimes in the interviews, but yeah, let's call it a night. We got one more stop.
It's really cold and very creepy. We're hearing gunshots around us and definitely not the part of town you want to be in, considering Jeffrey and what he did here 30 years ago, so.
And it was right here. This is the land of the Oxford Apartments. There is a darkness, just like Bob told us.
Definitely.
All right, let's get out of here. Honestly, those bodies were
laying on the ground and the REM pod going off crazy.
All right, everybody, so you guys know how the Estes method works. It's cold out, it's very windy, but we're actually parked on the property right now. The Oxford Apartments would have been right in front of us. The car is actually touching the grass, so we're somewhat connected to the property, and it's actually starting to rain right now, so the energy is going to be ramping up in the area, also with lightning and stuff above. So, Estes method, I'm going to blindfold myself, put my headphones on. I can't hear your guys' questions. Go ahead and ask. Let's get to the bottom of this. Whatever you want to, I mean, I guess it's already been figured out pretty. Okay. Okay, everybody, ask away. Care about them?
Are any of Jeffrey's victims here with us right now? There were 17 of you. 15, I believe, that were murdered on this property.
5, I just heard. Like, literally, like, 5. Lots of volunteers.
How old were you?
Cold out here. For a time.
Can you tell me how you were murdered?
No call.
How did you meet Jeffrey?
Milwaukee.
Were you walking around?
Bar hopping.
That's weird.
That's kind of, I imagine that would be relevant. It was like a bar ad, like bar hopping.
Wow. Which one of the victims are we talking to right now? We know he picked up a lot of them while bar hopping. Can you tell me your name?
Dad. You know, I actually feel some sort of like energy over here coming in almost on my skin in the car. It's kind of creeping me out. Oh, I just heard, oh. That was weird.
Can you tell us what room you were killed in here at the Oxford Apartments? What did you think about...
Come with us.
What did you think about Jeffrey Dahmer when you first met him? Do you remember?
Finished.
Did he slip you some sleeping pills?
At one point.
Do you remember what happened to you
My
after
finger.
that?
Ooh. Eek.
Did he take any pictures of your body afterwards? We know there are a lot of pictures of his victims. Were you one of those?
Obviously. It was a sad frame.
It was a sad frame.
Or a sad day, maybe? I don't really know.
That is really sad. I'm sorry that
Cheese.
that happened to you. Cheese. Is he trying to make like a joke like about the pictures?
Right.
Or cheese, Wisconsin.
Well, it could be either one.
New York, come drink.
I was just going to ask him, like, what do you drink? What do you drink? What kind of alcohol do you drink?
He came and was gone.
Did you trust him when you first met him?
Very aggressive. You know what it's like?
We don't know what it's like. We're so sorry that that happened. What does it feel like to
Headline.
I was about to ask, what does it feel like to have your story known?
Oh, that's weird.
Could you tell us how old you were? Is this Conorak maybe that we're talking to?
I just heard something that was just like, 5,000.
Did you ever talk to the police the night that you were killed?
Every day for 2 weeks.
I'm sure some victims that
Well done.
went away talked to the police.
It was a song, but it sounded like it said, Dahmer. In the name of the Father.
Were you able to find peace with God maybe afterwards? Or were you a believer during your life?
No light.
After I asked if you found God after.
Right.
Do you feel like you're trapped here on this property?
Kind of just like here I am.
Well, Dahmer was also murdered in prison, brutally.
The military damaged him.
What?
That's
weird. Very weird.
Is that the wind?
No, I didn't hear.
Huh?
I don't hear anything.
I felt the car move. Nobody felt that? What the I thought the car just went like this.
Weird.
Oh. Okay.
What emotions were you feeling the night that
Blue.
you were murdered?
Oh.
Feeling blue.
Maybe a blue barrel?
That's really sad.
No. No, I feel cold on my neck too, weirdly enough.
Are we talking to a victim or to
They're here.
Dahmer? Oh. Victims are here. Was that you lying on the ground over there? If so, give us a name.
Glasses.
You had glasses?
Tell us your name or your age. I have a list of all of Jeffrey's victims, and we can figure out who we're talking to. You can narrow that down for us.
Pretty young.
Okay. Hey, what was your name then?
He defiled me. Ooh, that was creepy. I think it might have sounded like defies me, but I could have also swung towards defiled me.
His two youngest victims were 14, and it was James Doxtador and Conorak.
Okay. Milwaukee. Jay.
Jay?
James.
Is this
weird.
James?
No. Me.
James was,
That almost sounded like listening to Jeffrey Dahmer's interviews. No. Me. He had that kind of...
Maybe he is with us. What do you remember from the night that you were killed?
Doesn't make any sense.
I know, it doesn't make any sense. Do you remember any of the conversations?
Running in the street.
That's Conorak. Conorak was running around in the streets trying to get help.
Oh my gosh.
Conorak is
Arrested. Arrest him.
He was arrested, Conorak. He was arrested and he was murdered himself.
They're laughing.
Oh. When you said he was murdered.
He was murdered himself and then they're all happy.
All day.
Does that make you happy?
They tried to relocate me. I feel cold again on my neck over here.
Does that make you happy knowing that Jeffrey was brought to justice and that he was killed himself?
Doesn't matter. He's here.
What if they're like, it doesn't matter because he's
Ooh, I got
still
really
here?
creeped out hearing that. Dahmer. Literally. I keep hearing like, I mean, it could have been like Dahmer, but it was like Dahmer.
Oh my god. He can't hurt you anymore.
Ooh, I'm actually kind of creeped all of a sudden.
Well, there's
torture.
Well, there's more of you and only one of
Me.
him. Again, do you remember anything about the night you were killed?
Why'd you bring me? Spilled in the sink or something. Adams. I'm not home.
Did you meet Jeffrey at a bar on the night that you were killed?
Lost.
Did you trust him?
I could tell he was ruffled or something. Ruffled.
That's interesting.
From somewhere. I hauled him.
There were 17 victims.
Young Lovin', I just heard. I don't know what would be broadcasting that.
There were 17
Slime.
of you. You weren't the only one. Did you ever find out what happened?
We're all here.
Did you all ever figure out what happened to you after you were killed?
Bedtime. All for fun. Rope. Cuffed in hands. Cuffed or in hands and feet or something like that. Sorry.
I asked, like, do you remember what happened to you the night that you were killed?
Right.
He did
Oh, that was
cuff
crazy.
a lot of his victims.
So negative.
The cops.
Holes.
Holes. That's another
Come with
thing.
us, sir. Oh, a lot of voices all of a sudden.
You see drilled holes in their head.
The nighttime.
Do you remember, Jeffrey, drilling holes in your head? I know you were still alive when that happened.
He was going through a lot. Cute. Indianapolis.
When the cops came to arrest Jeffrey, your
I love Halloween.
your spirit was still here. Do you remember that night? Were you excited that he was finally caught?
Just let me go. Certainly it doesn't help.
Can we do anything to help you?
We were so many technicians.
Is there anything you want to let us know about what happened to you or about your story.
There's a baby. Just a mom.
Were you... Oh, one of the victims had his baby mama had just had a baby.
Oh.
They got the right stuff.
Wow.
If they can prove her,
Is there anyone else that wants to let us know anything that you want to get off your chest, or...
Come on. His house.
Again, can anyone tell us any name?
Bye.
What's your name?
It's owed to us.
Well, whoever you are, whoever we're speaking to, we're gonna keep your name alive. We
Never forget.
We won't ever forget. We're gonna keep telling your stories, and you're never gonna be forgotten. Your death will not go unnoticed.
Murder.
Yeah. Your murder
He was
will
a
not
person.
go unnoticed.
Okay, I gotta be
Yeah,
done.
that was a good ending.
Holy
Oh,
shit.
That was good.
Did some of that make sense?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that is really disorienting, man, when you're
That was
dizzy.
honestly really.
That
like,
was.
You were answering.
There was a couple that I was like, I could see that making sense.
Yeah. And it did. A lot of them.
And then random ones like cheese.
Right.
I thought it was funny, but it was like cheese.
You want to know what's weird about that one? Right before that, I said, did you know that Jeffrey took pictures of you? And you said something like, bad frame. And then you said, cheese. So, like, were they making a joke? Like, yeah, he took pictures of you dead, cheese, or something.
I don't know.
Crazy.
Well, I'm excited to go back and watch that.
Right.
Anyways, guys, I think it's time to go have dinner. It's Colin here. I just did the Estes method. One more time, to anybody here at the Oxford Apartments, I'm leaving you only the best energy, and I hope you found peace. Jeffrey, I hope you're burning somewhere or being tortured for eternity. And yeah, I'm so sorry that all this happened to you guys. We came here only with the most respect, peace, and love, and we're leaving only that, all right? Hello? Courtney. 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 Really? So to end our documentary on this horrific string of crimes, we have come to the Holy Cross Cemetery and Mausoleum here in Milwaukee. It is a massive, massive mausoleum. I've never seen as large of a mausoleum as this. It looks like a school. But we brought these flowers. We were hoping to have a grave to lay them on, but right here is Conorak. If you guys remember in the Jeffrey Dahmer story, in our opinion, Courtney and I's, Conorak had the worst experience out of all of them because he should have been saved by the police officers on that day. He should have been placed in their custody and helped, but he was basically delivered to be killed. And his brother was also targeted at one point. So it's just really sad, but
These flowers are for Conrad. You want to say anything?
I'm sorry that you had to die in such a horrific way, and you're definitely remembered by a lot of people.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, just that's such a terrible story, and you just feel so sad. Even if you didn't know him personally, it's just an awful, awful story.
It's like you said that one time, it's somebody's kid.
Yeah, definitely somebody's kid, and he could have been saved. And just, he was out and then was just thrown back in with the devil.
Yeah, actually, this is one of the sadder stories I've heard for quite some time, so I didn't know that much about it until Courtney and Colin's podcast, and I remember it, but yeah, rest in peace.
I just want to send my condolences to the Synthasimphone family. Not only did they lose a son, like you said, they had both siblings of the family were victims of Jeffrey Dahmer, and unfortunately, Conrad didn't make it out. So condolences to his family 30 years ago.
This year?
Yeah, this year he died, so we're gonna remember him with these flowers.
You want to put them down?
Sure.
At the end of the day, just like with every true crime story, we didn't find an answer. We just found the mystery. The mystery of what's haunting Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Is it an actual presence? Is it an actual entity that appears to people who go seek it out? I don't really know. Maybe it's just the combined cultural memory of such a shocking series of events. Maybe it is an energy left over from such a heinous, blood-soaked crime. I'm not here to give you answers, but in doing this video, it reminded me that there are killers, there are monsters, there is evil everywhere. It's not limited to Milwaukee. These things, these creatures, they hide in the shadows. They're in every city in the United States and in every country on the planet. This video should teach you to always watch out for yourself, always be looking behind your back, because you never want to get yourself into a dark corner with no way out. I don't know if the ghost of Dahmer is in Milwaukee. Something is. But I guess I'll just have to keep searching for the truth myself.
There's Jeffrey Dahmer, that the man in the striped shirt is the defendant. He is this apparently a part of his decision to, as he put it, tell the whole truth. The man with his back to us there in the light-colored jacket is Gerald Boyle, his chosen attorney. One suspects we might do well now, Mike, in the control room, to go pick up the sound in the courtroom and listen for a moment. That man in the center of your screen, charged with as many as 17 of the most incomprehensibly terrible crimes human mind can conceive.
My name is Rita Isbell, and I'm the oldest sister of Errol Lindsay. Whatever your name is, say, I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, mother. I hate you. This is out of control. Don't me, Jeffrey. I kill you. Look at me, mother. I kill you. What's your name, fast? I kill you.
I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself.
At the time the crime was committed in count 5 of the information in regard to the death of Edward W. Smith, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no.
And so it came back for each of the 15 counts. The jury ruling Jeffrey Dahmer was sane at the time he murdered and dismembered 15 young Milwaukee area males. Dahmer appeared emotionless as the verdicts were read.
There are shocking new details about the murder of America's most hated serial killer and how he may have seen his own death coming. Tonight, Diane Diamond reports on the plot to kill a killer.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
Exactly what happened is still not clear. Dahmer was cleaning a prison bathroom with 2 other inmates when suddenly one of them apparently took a broom handle and started beating Dahmer to death. Officials say it was this man, Christopher Scarver, who carried out Dahmer's death sentence.
How they caught the assailant is that he was covered with blood. There was apparently a great deal of blood at the scene.
Prison officials won't say why 3 guards assigned to the area left the inmates alone. But for now, they insist the guards did nothing wrong.
30 years since the arrest of one of the country's most prolific serial killers.
Jeffrey Dahmer was captured in a West Side. Hello.